I've got a short topic for you today. We have talked about the seasonality, specifically of foods in the 18th century, a good bit, and it's a fascinating topic. And foods were very seasonal in the 18th century. Obviously, fruits. So many different kinds of fruits are only available for this very, very narrow window, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, that a particular fruit might be available. And then if we want to have that later on, we have to come up with different ways of preserving it. But preserving is never the same as when they're fresh, right? And so very true in the 18th century. Vegetables certainly have a very seasonal thing going on with them. But some vegetables are really good at being preserved, and they're almost as good fresh as they might be 2 or 3 months later if they're preserved properly. But they still have a seasonality to them, no matter what we kind of do, at least in the 18th century. Foods, specifically meats and things like fish, those are seasonal also within the 18th century. They had particular hunting seasons. The food might not, or the meat might not be as good, even though they maybe legally could hunt year-round. You wouldn't want to eat certain things different parts of the year because it wouldn't taste as good. And fish certainly had certain kinds of seasonality, especially the fish that would come in runs, where you would catch fish as many as you possibly could for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they would be gone for a whole another year. So there was a lot of seasonality to that. And even domesticated animals, there was certainly a seasonality to that meat. You only butchered in the late fall, early winter, and that meat you had to preserve and keep it for other parts of the year. And you could butcher other times of the year, but the meat you have to eat it all right away because you couldn't really preserve it. So there's a lot of seasonality of foods, but that seasonality keeps stretching out into basically all the different kinds of occupations going on in the 18th century. There's certainly seasonality that has to do with, say, building structures like this. You don't want to build your house in the wintertime. That makes it very, very difficult. So there's a seasonality to that. And something like this log structure that we're working on, we want to peel the logs on this. Well, if you want to peel the logs, if you want to take the bark off, that is very, very easy right now. Right here we are at the middle of June, and whoa, the logs peel like bananas. You just take a piece off, and off comes a giant strip of bark. Or if you're careful, you can strip away the entire bark of the tree, like it was taking off the jacket off of somebody. It is amazing to work with the bark at this time of year. But two months earlier, it would have been very, very difficult to get the bark off. And 2 months from now, it'll be very difficult. So if you want to work with bark, and bark is this great resource, very important in the 18th century. If you want to work with bark, then now's the time to do it. Now's the time to harvest it. So different things had this incredible seasonality to them. And even certain things like minerals in the ground are going to be much easier to dig out and to process at different times of the year than others. And so much of that we have gotten away from, haven't we? In our modern life, our foods are not very seasonal at all. We can get strawberries in the wintertime and blueberries in the wintertime, even though they might be cheaper and more prolific. When they are in the season, we've stretched these seasons out, and our jobs are the same day in, day out, all year long. But yet in the 18th century, someone probably had different kinds of jobs that had to change all throughout the year because of the seasonality of what they're doing. Well, this time of year, this is the kind of work we do. In 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be switching to something else. And so we miss out on that. We conduct these very, very, and we on purpose, don't we? We've purposely have these monotonous lives with eating the same kind of food, doing the same kind of job, watching the same or intake the same kind of entertainment continuously. Maybe sports changes a little bit, but even then we stretch our sports seasons out into the seasons where they don't belong. There's snow happening when you're having football, and you're playing hockey in the summertime. So we stretch all these things out, we smush them around, and we try to change the seasons We tried to make them all one season together, and I'm not sure that that's a good thing. In fact, I'm sure that we've lost something by not having to deal with the seasons as they come to us, and take them for what they are and enjoy them while they're happening, and then wait for them to come again. And sometimes we have seasons that are beyond a year long. Sometimes it's like this year wasn't a good year for morels right here. And so we might have to wait another year or another 2 years before we get a good mushroom year for right in this spot. I really think we are missing something. Certainly we lead much different lives when it comes to the seasonality of foods and occupation and entertainment than folks did in the 18th century. Well, I want to thank you for coming along on this little adventure, this little thought adventure about what it was like, how much different was it for folks in the 18th century than it is for us today, especially with this idea of seasonality. I want to thank you for all your amazing support, all the great comments, and all the other kinds of support we get, buying merch and sharing our videos. So thank you for all you guys do, and thanks for watching.